Hi, I'm Bob Carroll. I'm the Executive Vice President at Permanent Solutions Labor Consultants, and I'm your host for Employee Relations Words of Wisdom. Before I get started, remember, when you see this on social media, make sure you give us that thumbs up, that like. We always appreciate it. And I'm joined by Donna Smith from B6 Security today to talk about strikes. And Donna, why don't you give us your background? Let us know what you bring to the table when it comes to dealing with strikes.
Okay. Well, I have 30 years experience in the security industry, primarily in very close protection of high net worth individuals. Uh, my website is orlandobodyguard.com. I own B6 Security along with another little venture or two. Primarily, B6 is now in the business of uniform security guards in addition to our executive protection division. So we're doing FEMA jobs, we're doing anything that requires very high quality, very intense security in extraordinary circumstances. So disaster security, that sort of thing.
And you have a pretty big background. If I remember from our last conversation, you are actually guarding hotels in Libya?
Yeah, we got a call to do the Corinthia Hotel when the world was looking for Muammar Gaddafi. He was on the run; nobody could find him. And with anytime you have someone like that, a dictator, when there's nobody can find him, there's a power vacuum. So all the rules were just thrown out the window. It was a literal civil war. The Corinthia is a 5-star resort. They're a UN hotel. When the UN comes to evaluate the situation, they were going to be staying at the Corinthia. Bad news, the Rixos Hotel up the street had been overrun and overtaken by rebels. The Corinthia did not want that to happen, so I got the call to secure that property, and that's what we did.
Crazy
So,
story. So we're predicting a rise. In fact, before we started recording, you were telling me about a New York Times article about a
yes.
rise in union organizing, and uh, we've been predicting that for. In fact, last time we talked, I was telling you that we were predicting a huge rise in union organizing. But on top of union organizing, I also predict and we as a company predict a rise in strike activity, which is why I wanted to talk to you, so people know and understand. When employees walk out on strike, it isn't because, hey, I woke up today and I think it's a good thing to do. They go out on strike when they're fed up. They're done with management. They feel they have no other option because nobody says, hey, let's go on a strike, even for a day. And then it ends up being a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months, years. It can turn into a really hostile and emotional situation. In fact, the unions will prep the employees by making it a hostile situation by playing to their emotions
Mm-hmm.
to get them to walk out in the first place, because it really is a hard thing for an employee to do. So when that happens, there's a rise in tension, there's a rise in a propensity for potential violence. At a minimum, they're going to block the entrances so that people can't get into work. And we've seen people pulled out of cars, people throw star nails on the freeways. Um, I had a video I used to use in training during the Verizon strike a couple of years back, where a father actually brought his child and put his child in front of a work vehicle and dared him to run him over.
Ah,
Oh, it gets very serious very fast. And in those situations, we need to work not only with a company like us that knows how to do all the contingency planning, run the strike from the ground, but we need very talented security teams to be a big part of that plan. And you not only have the capacity to work the strike line, but you also have the capacity with some pretty heavy hitters for executive protection, correct?
correct. That's very correct. Yes, sir.
So what people don't realize is during the strikes, the CEOs, the presidents, uh, a lot of people involved have people show up at their front door, threats made, and that's where Donna comes in, not only to protect the employees coming in, but to protect the people and their families at home.
Correct.
And what advice would you give to a CEO or a president of a company that was dealing with a strike and it did become hostile?
Well, the first thing to remember is it's not about you. Um, it's about people and interpersonal relationships. In the guard business, and I think probably just about any, if you can apply that to manufacturing, it's all about frontline supervision. So if you have interpersonal relationships that are failing, that's where the conflict is. So if you have someone who's already angry, you mentioned, the emotions and how emotions get played in these situations. If you've got a boss or a manager or somebody that you don't like, and now all of a sudden you're in an environment where a little violence is somehow acceptable, you're not going to maybe direct it to the CEO. It's going to be that low level manager that you already have a conflict with. That's the person that you need to think about protecting. That's where things go haywire. People use an environment like this. It's kind of a riot mentality. You've already got a beef with somebody, and now you're in this mob, and it's a mob mentality that kind of overcomes. And you said it yourself. Emotions are fanned and flamed, and so it's not just the CEO. Obviously, that's the first choice, but it's also those managers that need the protection as well, and their families.
And those managers are the ones going through the lines every day. They have to go to
Exactly.
work. So you
They're the
need,
vulnerable ones. They're the most vulnerable, in my opinion.
right, right. And that's on our side. A big part of the contingency planning is mentally preparing
Right.
those supervisors for what they're going to go through day in, day out for however long the strike lasts.
Correct. It,
And
it's tough. That's the hard part right there, because that's where the breakdown happens. People just, emotionally can't handle it anymore.
right, and it's tough for a security company because, in the strikes that I've dealt with, if say they're the strikers are impeding traffic, there's little you can do. You can call the police at that moment, as long as they're moving and they move at union pace, which is very, very slow. So, and that's got to be frustrating for your team, isn't it?
Well, we're professionals, so we don't get emotionally involved. We don't take sides. There's no right or wrong. It's this is what we're here to do, and this is what we're going to do, and we get along with everybody. We don't take sides. We are Switzerland when we get out there. This is the job. We have rules. You agreed to the rules. Now you're breaking the rules. How can we fix that? How can we motivate you to follow the rules?
Yeah,
That's our position. We're
I
not
think
tough
one
guys for hire. We're not
right
out there
one
to beat anybody up.
one of the hardest things I think you have to do is, a lot of strikes that we've dealt with is actually bust the workers in, and security is very plays a very, very large role in that, in getting people in safely.
Mhm.
And I commend any security company that actually goes through that strike line. Some of them, I mean, let's face it, some strikes are very peaceful demonstrations, but in the beginning, they're almost always overdrawn with those emotions. And when you're busing people in, your guards are the ones that are putting themselves at risk. And frankly, I don't think the people that are going into work give you enough credit for the work you do.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, we have to be professional about it. We're not emotionally involved in the issue. We don't work there. We don't know those managers. We don't know your grievances. We appreciate them. We empathize with everybody. Everybody has a point, but it's not our job to get involved in it. We just do our job. We do what we're there for, and then we go home at the end of the day. And hopefully, everyone sees the value in that. Everybody wants to go home at the end of the day.
Well,
Right.
Donna, it's been great to have you.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me on.
I look forward to working with you in the future. Hopefully, we're wrong, but I don't think we are. I think there's going to be strike activity.
I
And
fear so.
yes, yes. And for the people out there, we are well prepared to take care of you. I want to remind everybody that the first step is to have a strike contingency plan in place. That means you need to talk to somebody like Permanent Solutions labor consultants like myself and develop a plan. We have a 200 plus point plan that we have. And that plan does include getting in touch with somebody like Donna to make sure the security resources are in place. So with that said, we look forward to talking to you next week on Employee Relations Words of Wisdom. Thanks, Donna.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All
Have a
right.
great day.